And today we're going to learn the Haftorah of Parshat Korach. To really appreciate the Haftorah, we need to give a synopsis of the Parsha of the week. At least the main part of the Parsha of the week, the beginning of the Parsha, the story of Korach. Korach came and complained, not only complained, he accused Moses for being a leader. Officially he said, the whole nation are holy people. Why you are better than us? God revealed himself to everybody. Why only you? Why you think you're better? What he really wanted, to become a leader. Moses called them on this and told them, you're better than everybody. What are you telling me everybody is equal? You're a Levite. A Levite is better, is an higher level than an Israelite. Then you argue why Aaron is a Kohen, why I'm the king. You're also better than everybody. But that was the argument. And Moses tried to make peace, and it didn't work, right? They didn't want to badge in. They didn't want to give in. Then what happened in the end?
Well, we know that Moses made it.
Swallowed up by the earth and covered over.
Moses turned to God and said, if I made it up on my heart that these people should die a regular death, but if I'm speaking in the name of God, then the herd should open their mouth and should swallow them up, right? Wow. And the 250 people who offered incense were burned. It was Freilach. Why was Moses so strong about it?
Because they were questioning not only his authority, but God's authority.
Oh. All the other times before that, they complained. We want water, we want meat. Why you took us out from Egypt? But they never said, who are you, Moses? This time they came and said, Moses, you're making up stories. The moment they questioning Moses' credibility, then everything is gone. Then there's no Ten Commandment. Then why should I believe to Moses about putting on film? Understand the problem? That's the problem. If I think that Moses made up one, he appointed Aaron on his own, then maybe he also told us to eat matzah on his own. Let's say the Ten Commandments all hear from God, fine. But matzah they didn't hear from God, film they didn't hear from God. To put up a mezuzah they didn't hear from God. The moment you questioning Moses' credibility or you're challenging Moses' authority as a representative of God on earth, it's over. That's why there was no place for
doubt.
Leisure. It was a hin or a hair, black or white, like by Khrushchev.
So Moses is a prophet, and what he says is coming from Hashem.
Absolutely.
So why didn't the other prophets have similar abilities to convince the people to do things?
First of all, many of them had. They did miracles. There is two eras of prophets. Elijah, they made huge miracles. Maybe later, Jeremiah and this were less miracles. But the first bunch of prophets, they were making big miracles.
So the farther you got removed from in time sequence.
But you need to understand, look, Moses split the sea, right?
Yes.
Didn't help him. It's not about making miracles. It's about people wanting to believe in God. You can make 1,000 miracles. People don't want to believe, they don't believe.
Would you call it a rebellion? It's not really a rebellion.
That was a rebellion against God, no question. Korach was clearly a rebellion against God. That's why he was swallowed up, out. There cannot be a one shred. That's why Moses didn't pray for forgiveness. Usually, anytime there was somebody sinful, God wanted to punish, Moses said, please, don't do it. Here, Moses suggested the punishment. Not because Moses was personally insulted. Because there was no way in the middle. In the middle, Moses says there, God, don't listen, don't accept their prayer, their sacrifices. Because I didn't take anything from these people. Not one donkey, not one anything I didn't take for these people. And Rashi says, why Korach? Talmud says like this, Korach, who was a smart man, why did such a foolish thing?
Jealousy.
Why jealousy?
And he thought he was more deserving.
Why?
Oh, because of the lineage, I think.
What was the lineage?
His brother.
He was a Levite, wasn't he?
No, it's just the
He
lineage.
saw the future. What he saw? He saw that from him will come out, he had a feeling or a prophecy that from him will come out who?
Messiah?
Very, very famous man.
Yeah.
This man.
Prophet.
Samuel?
Samuel. Guess what? The Haftorah is about Samuel. Deja vu. It's coming back and Samuel was accused, similar what Korah accused Moses. What goes around comes around. Exactly that's what happened here. And that's what you're going to learn. Samuel was accused. Samuel was a prophet. Samuel was the last prophet. The Jews came to Samuel. What they told them? We want what?
King.
Want a king. What is this basically say? You're the rabbi. You're the doctor. I say, you have any young good doctor? Rabbi, we love you, but you have some young guy there. What does this mean? It means that they are tired of Samuel. God told Samuel, don't worry, that's not they were against you. They were against me. They got tired of God. That whatever happened with Korach to Moses, a similar thing, the other people accused Samuel was a descendant of Korach. Obviously, it was not perfectly the same story, but it was a similar story. By Korach, they said, why we need leadership? Everybody is holy. By Samuel, they said, we need a leader. What does this tell you? Jews, whatever you give them, they don't like it. When they have a leader, we don't want a leader. They don't have a leader, we need a leader. Whatever you give them is not good. But it's not only Jews. People are never happy with the system. It's democracy, they say that's too much democracy. It's theocracy, oh, we need democracy. You're always trying to change the political system. In Israel, they changed already that. It was for a while, we had like here in America, you vote for the president separately. You vote for the president, not just for the party. In Israel, you vote for the party. You vote for Likud. The head of the Likud becomes the leader. But you don't vote for Netanyahu. For a while, they made it to vote for the leader itself. And what happened there was such a mess. Because the leader got a lot of votes, but his party got no vote. That the leader was dependent on many other small parties. They turned it back around. Because it was such a disaster, they turned it back around. What I mean to say is, every time you try to say, oh, we'll do a better way. Be smarter than God. Smarter than the system. It doesn't work. But that really what happened with Samuel. That they came to Samuel, told him what a leader. Fine. Samuel went, he told God, God told him, he found Saul, he appointed Saul as a leader once, then he appointed Saul a leader twice, but at the third time he was finally a leader. 3 times. 3 inaugurations for Saul. Now we'll read a little bit from inside.
What page?
Page 1453, I'm sorry. Now Samuel was an unbelievable prophet. He was a man who went from city to city and brought people back to God. See, until this point, leadership was by judges. It was a spiritual power, not a power not a kingdom power, not by law. People came to Deborah. She didn't have an army. They came to hear what she says. People came to Samuel. Samuel didn't have power by force. It was by his authority, by what he represented. Now think about it. Who we remember more, the kings or the prophets?
Prophets, they quote them all the time. Most of the
The
kings, they don't know who they are.
They have their own books.
Not because the prophets have their own books. Why they have books? Because they said something.
Because they wrote
They
the books.
recorded.
Because they said something meaningful.
But they're
The
also,
king.
there's also,
The king died. Everybody's saying Baruch Hashem.
but they have prophecy from God also on top of it.
What I mean to say is their a spiritual authority is forever. See, in something in the Parsha we learned this weekend, Korach, yeah? God said, Moses says, throw him out, kill him. Moses didn't pray for him. Eldad and Medad, there were two guys who prophesied that Moses is dying and Joshua will lead the Jews to the land of Israel. Moses says, I wish everybody would be prophets. Because they were not coming with the power of... Korach wanted authority. They said prophecy. It's a whole different... Samuel was the last one, and the leaders were leading by spirituality. Saul was the first king. It's a whole different ballgame. I'm the boss. No messing around. What is better? Spiritual authority or kingdom?
Both, because we'll get that in Mashiach. Right?
He wants everything.
Kingdom is more natural.
Natural.
Well, we have countries today that run some ways, some run one way, and some run the other way.
For
And
example?
all the Gulf countries are run by some of them are run by kings,
By kings.
but within them there are spiritual authorities that are higher than some of the kings.
Yeah, but the spiritual authority is
There's
based by
power.
iron
Yeah.
force.
Iran.
Having just
Iron
come
fist.
from Russia, the Tsar, who was king, people didn't do so well.
Exactly.
Right. But there's no spiritual.
But they did wars by
That's
communism.
That's true. But that's not spiritual, obviously.
Obviously.
But on Iran, you have a king.
None is not spiritual.
Totally
That's
is
on the other
Let's
hand of the
talk
spectrum.
about a real spiritual life.
Okay.
There is a Rebbe, Moshiach, everybody listens to him. Or a king. Or in the time of Samuel, was it Samuel or Saul? What was better, Samuel or Saul?
Yes.
Okay, let's read a little bit. Maybe we'll get a better...
Well, if
Understand.
it's not Samuel and it evolved to being Saul, there must be some message in that, right?
Is it good?
If it went from prophets to kings, there must be some message that God is telling us about that.
You're right.
And I don't know what it is, but
But I think the message is more what you said, which is whatever the situation is, people want to go
Something
in another
else.
direction.
But you asked me to.
When will people be more religious? By a king? Let's say a religious king. By a king or by a prophet? Or by a spiritual leader?
More religious.
You see, before Saul... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say the spiritual authority, when people feel like it, and when people are in a good mood, and it doesn't go against their interest, and they're not tired to come, to study, then they'll. It's all good. But if a king is going to say you have to do this or else,
So
off with their
monarchy or
heads.
theocracy. That's what you're asking.
Theocracy is what?
Theocracy is
All
a
spiritual.
God runs.
is
Yeah,
a leadership based on religion.
God.
spiritual.
But not by force. Pure by spirituality.
But it has to be the kingdom.
Well, if you look at Japan in World War II, they had an emperor, but the emperor they believed was a representative of their god.
Yeah, but he didn't rule only by God power. He ruled by police.
You could say the same thing about the Arab world.
Yes.
Yes,
There
that's
are
what I was saying earlier.
There are theocracies in the Arab world.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
like Iran.
Yes.
There are ayatollahs,
And
number
they're
one.
stronger than the king.
But it has to be a benign theocracy.
Well, these aren't. They're,
That's correct.
Okay, we'll learn a little bit inside. We'll see. Maybe we can come up with some
Good
understanding.
solution.
the other thing is, if you're right, if there was a king, then they might say, well, we're done with this king, we want a prophet, spiritual authority. And then once they got the spiritual authority, they'd say, we don't want this, we want to go back to a king. But it doesn't. It evolves only to kings.
But there was no.
Oh, but there's no two way back.
But there's been no reversion to it.
But that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
And I'm saying, there must be a message.
Actually, after the destruction of the temple,
We lost our
after the
kings.
Jews, we lost our king, and we really went back to a spiritual authority.
2,500 years.
Obviously, kingdom didn't work.
Until the Hashmonayim, where who,
Even in the whole second temple, there was more
That's
spiritual.
true. The Hashmonayim would have been an example.
They were kings.
But
they
still,
started as
Yes.
And because they were king, they messed up big time.
yeah. Yeah.
And later
Ultimately.
later
But not
became the
initially.
rabbis. Initially, it was good. Yeah, it's for 2 hours. It's good. I mean to say,
More than-
until
I think a couple generations.
until you exercise your power, until you lose it, you forget who gave you power. It's good.
So power corrupts.
Yeah, you bet.
I mean, that's the message here with the Korach
With
episode
everything.
is that power corrupts.
Yes. No question about it. That's what Korach also tried to accuse Moses.
It was a projection.
Sure, it was a
Yes.
projection. Moses, when Korach tells them, "Why are you your leader?" Moses answers him, "I took a donkey from any one of them." Korach can tell him that I ever asked you if you took a donkey, never accused you on this. I never said it. Why Moses said it? Because behind the word was laying behind the word. You know, when people complain, "Oh, what do you really want? Oh, you're probably becoming rich on our account and this." Moses says, "I didn't take anything from these guys. Nothing." How many leaders can say they didn't take anything?
Not our current.
Zero.
You know what?
Just one is running for president. Allegedly.
Actually, he didn't take anything from people.
And it's not true, he lied. He did.
Okay, we will not talk about it.
He did.
Okay. Samuel said,
Shmuel said to the people, "Let's go to Gilgal and renew the monarchy there." All the people went to Gilgal.
Gilgal was the place, it was the temple at that time. Go ahead.
All the people went to Gilgal. They all willingly confirmed Shaul as king there before God in Gilgal, and they slaughtered peace offerings there before God. Shaul and all the people rejoiced greatly.
Okay, Shaul and all the people rejoiced greatly. The first time they accepted him willingly because he went to war and he protected the Jews from the Amorites, or I don't remember from whom. And when he proved himself, then the Jews finally accepted him as a king. But you see, Saul and the people were happy. One guy was not happy.
Why does it
Samuel.
say renew the monarchy? So that means there were kings before? So-
No, because I knew the monarchy because they made him a king once.
Oh, right.
Maybe that's it. Maybe because the time of Moses was monarchy. Maybe that's what I know.
Okay.
אחד הממלוכה.
All right.
Okay, now comes a real reprimanding speech.
Shmuel said to all Israel, "Look, I have listened to your request about everything which you said to me, and I have appointed a king to reign over you. Now,
I listen to your request. Not God's request, your request to have a king. But I have a question for you. Didn't you learn the Deuteronomy that you should appoint a king?
supposed to be a king, yeah,
Yeah.
17.
Oh, good. At least somebody remembers that. Champions. Yeah.
Very good.
But 1243.
What is it?
1243.
12,
What number is king?
appointment of a king.
Yeah. Read it.
When you come to the land of God, your God is giving you, and you take possession of it and settle in it, you will eventually say, I will set a king over myself like all the nations around me.
That means God is already predicting
Yeah.
what happened there. You will say, but why we want a king? Like all the nations around me. By the way, that's where the problem is. If you say a king is here, the king's job was really the king was God's representative on earth. Once in 7 years used to be the Akel. Akel was a time after the sabbatical. The king used to stand on the stage in Jerusalem, read from the book of Deuteronomy. It was a reenaction of Mount Sinai. That if you say, I want a king to represent God, to bring me closer to God, no. But God already says you want a king, like, because in Italy because in England they have a king. That's why we want a king. That's the power. And what God is saying, number 15, continue.
You should always set a king over you, one whom God, your God, chooses. The king that you appoint.
Then it's a mitzvah. Then it's a mitzvah. But it should come from God, kind of. Maimonides writes that Jews should have a king. But maybe it has to be a king who can be a spiritual leader too, not just a king.
You got to pick the right guy at the right
And
time.
the Jews came to ask for a king. They wanted somebody with big muscles. Instead of saying to Samuel, Samuel, you be the king.
Well, he couldn't be. He was, was he from,
He was a
tribe of
Levite.
Judah?
He was a Levite. No.
Yeah,
He was a
Saul
Levite. And Moses
Benjamin.
was considered a king.
Yes and no.
King, he was considered Melech Verab, a king and a rabbi. Is to say that to make the spiritual leader into a powerful leader, not to look for somebody, some chveisish was, to make him into a king.
So this isn't a prediction of God.
This is a
This
prediction.
is a declaration.
That's a prediction and declaration that God says, you will say you want a king like any other nation. God says, I know how you're going to go
It
down.
says you will eventually
God, he
say.
knows.
Yeah, he knows. He's
want
not
a king.
predicting. He knows.
Well, it's just a question of time.
Well, he
yeah.
knows.
Exactly.
He knows because Hashem can foresee the future.
Well,
Not
but
only
he is
this,
if he is.
also because he knows, but he doesn't control, he doesn't make you decide it. He knows in a way that, like a fortune teller, I can tell you what will be the future. You understand
He
what I'm
knows
saying?
human nature, too. and it's-
We're not going to the whole thing, but yes.
He designed
Let's
it.
on this.
It's predeterminism.
Yes.
Based
To a
on-
point. We will not go into it because it's too complicated and we can never resolve it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This
It's
is
predetermined on one way, but there is free choice on the other way. These two things are contradiction by essence, and we believe in both of them.
God just fast forwards the
Right.
DVD, sees what's going to happen, goes back.
No, the problem
No,
is
he
that-
knows the
No,
ending
God doesn't
already.
exist time.
No. If God fast forward, it's
There's no
not,
fast forward.
If you say God fast forward, it's like a fortune teller. He knows the future. But if you believe that God predetermined, means God decides what will be the future, that means He makes it. If He makes it, it's not free choice. If it's free,
That's correct.
If he's
No, it's
Steven
more than-
Spielberg, it's not free choice. If he just flips to the end of the movie like we do, then there is
then
free
it's free
choice.
choice. Exactly.
It's a conundrum that they can't.
Exactly.
They can't simultaneously
Exactly.
exist.
But we say it's like making the movie, on the other hand, we believe in free choice.
But it's more, but Dennis Prager says that it's like you're driving down a freeway and you see there's, on the other way, there's a traffic jam. You keep driving and you see that cars are driving freely on the other side ultimately, but you know that those cars are going to have to stop.
Yeah, very nice.
You just said that.
You don't know that for sure.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And this is like a fortune teller concept. But when you make the movie, you not only know the end, you make the end. And God makes the end. That's the
Right,
problem.
right.
And if God makes the end, you understand the problem?
So maybe you have free choice of how
Then
you get there.
let's clear before we're spending another 10 hours about it. That we believe in free choice, and we believe that God, that everything is predetermined. These two concepts are a pure contradiction, and that's what belief kicks in. Yes. How could it be? How could God create the world? You know how? No. That's one more.
God does what the movie makers do. They create 5 different endings, and then you pick.
I think he's created the ending. You pick the path to get there.
I'm sorry we got into the whole
God
thing.
directs
That's
the
like,
steps of man. That's my favorite one.
but it's true. God directs the steps of man. This is true too. Chapter 12. Let's continue. Now. We'll never get out of it.
Chapter 12. Chapter 12.
I mean, back to the Haftorah, 1453,
No, Shmuel's
12:1. Mr. Martel, yeah.
12:1. Shmuel said to all Israel, "Look, I have listened to your request about everything which you have said to me, and I have appointed a king to reign over you. Now look, the new king is walking before you. I have become old and aged. My sons are supporting the king here with you. I have walked before you from my youth and until this day."
My son are with you means they're on your side. That's the sad part. Samuel's kids were not like Samuel. And that's what he says, my son are with you. Wherever you are, that's where they are. And he says from my youth. Samuel came as a kid to the temple, to Eli.
Eli's sons went south, and Samuel's sons went south. Huh?
But look what he comes here and says in 1454. What a statement. Who can say such a thing?
Here I am. Testify against me before God and before his anointed king. Have I taken anybody's ox? Have I taken anybody's donkey? Have I robbed anybody? Have I oppressed anybody? Did I take a payment from anyone's hand that caused me to hide my eyes about his wrongdoing and not punish him properly? Tell me, well, I can respond to you.
The same words that Moses said in the Parsha of this week. Moses said very similar words. But Moses said it to God, and he said it to the people. What takes more courage?
Saying it to God.
To the people.
I think.
I don't know.
Page 971. I'm sorry that I drive you back and forth with the book.
It's good.
971, number 15.
They say if you know the complete order of this, that you're not
like it.
supposed to.
Number
It would be
15.
too illuminary.
Number 15.
Moshe was extremely upset. He said to God, "Don't turn to their gift offering. I have not taken a donkey from a single one of them. I have not wronged a single one of them."
That's what Moses says. Moses says to God, I have not wronged one of them. He stood in front of the people. Doesn't anybody in the room stand up? Anybody thinks I took from them something, that I wronged them? For a leader to be able to see. Samuel and Moses are in the Torah compared. Yeah. Samuel is like Moses and Aaron put together. That's what the Talmud says. The book of Psalms says, King David says in the book of Psalms, Moshe v'Aaron bekoyanov u'Shmuel bekoy Shmuel. He compares Moses and Aaron and Samuel. Both of them call to God and God answers them. Samuel is compared to Moses and Aaron. Because besides Samuel, nobody said a line like Moses. Took anybody from anything? They took a thing from you guys. Okay. Look what they answered them. They said,
You did not rob us or oppress us, nor did you take anything from anyone's hand. He said to them, God is your witness, and his anointed king is witness this day, that you have not found anything inappropriate in my hand.
okay, he told them, God is witness. I didn't take anything from you. First of all, to put the whole nation on the spot. I feel bad for the guys, they were feeling not comfortable in the room. I said, I took anything from you guys? Basically, why you wanted a king? I wronged you. Why you needed a king for? Okay, number 6. Right? Yeah.
Okay. Shmuel said to the people, God made miracles through Moshe and Aaron.
Now, if you take off the parentheses, is God made Moshe and Aaron. What means this line? They didn't appoint themselves. God made them who they are. Go ahead, continue.
And brought your fathers up from the land of Egypt. Now stand, and I will debate with you before God concerning all the righteous acts which he did to you and to your forefathers.
He started the whole monologue to remind the Jews what God did for the Jewish people. Go ahead.
When Yaakov came to Egypt, and your fathers cried out to God, and God sent Moshe and Aaron without a king, they brought your fathers out of Egypt, and they settled them in this place.
And was no king, and it was good. Continue.
But they forgot God, their God, and he delivered them into the hand of Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor, into the hand of the Philistines, and into the hand of the king of Moab, who waged war with them without a king.
Without a king. Then what is happening here? Until Samuel, it was always, the Jews are in trouble, they pray to God, God saved them. Things are good, they started to worship idols, things got better again, they pray to God, God saved them again. Then somebody's out. Hello? Then and it was a pattern constantly. And that's what he says, it was without a God. Continue.
They cried out to God and said, We have sinned, for we have abandoned God and have served the deities of the Baal and the Ashtaroth. Now save us from the hand of our enemies, and we will serve you. And God sent Yerubbabel, Bedan, Yiftach, and Shmuel, and he saved you without a king from the hand of your surrounding enemies, and you lived in safety.
But it says, he mentions 4 names. Obviously, we're in different times. Every time, it goes up and down, up and down. Whenever you need it, God save you somebody. And what do you need a king for? That's what he's asking. Go ahead.
When you saw that Nahash, the king of the Ammonite nation, came upon you, you said to me, we don't want the judge to lead us to war, as in the days of our fathers, but we want the king that rules over us to lead us to war. But
And what does this mean? What's going on here? We want a king
Want a king to fight our battles.
to fight our battles. And what's the problem with that?
Is your king, God your God is your
Go ahead. Finish the one line.
But you were foolish, because
No,
God-
before the, yeah, go ahead before you finish. Yeah.
because
Because
God your God is your king, and he is the one who saved you at war, not the judge or human king.
then what's going on? God is your king, or God? Then Samuel says, God is your king. What do you need a king for?
God is a man of war. Right?
God is a king to take care of everything. Then instead, we should accept every day the kingdom of God. You want a physical king.
Maybe they're saying they want a king that will raise an army, but they don't want to be part of it.
No, they wanted to be. No, they know.
They were willing to fight still?
Just the opposite. In another place, Samuel tells them, you want a king? You know what the king is going to do? He's going to take you best boys to the army. Your best girls to his wives. He will take away your concubines. He will take away your land. A king, he tells them, a king there is no chokhmas. A king will do whatever he wants. And they knew very well what they're going into. And then they regret it for many years. Oh, just the opposite. By a king, there is no such thing as we don't want to be a part of the army. A king is the boss. Whatever a king says, you move the wrong face, you make a face in front of a king, by Jewish law, you deserve that. That's exactly when Samuel in the beginning warned them about the king. He says, no, I'm a prophet, I'm a loving father. You say this, you're being forgiven. Be a king, there would be no messing around. Just the opposite, it was much stricter with the king. But he said, V'Hashem Elokeichem Malkechem. God is your king. What do you need a king for? You can have a straight relationship with God. You need a physical king who has chariots and armies and a big crown of his head.
So why do we need a Mashiach then, if all we need is God?
He told them God is the king. He was a prophet. Samuel was still there.
Mm-hmm.
But the relationship was straight was the kingdom belonged to God.
Mm-hmm.
Moshiach can be, in essence, just a prophet, in essence, a messenger. Moshiach is such a king that represents God. Such a king is not bad. You understand what I'm saying?
He's a pure
A
representative.
king who is only a vehicle to God, who is only a microphone to God like Moses, is not a problem. The problem is when the king is a separate identity of God. And that's the problem. You know, what's the idol worship? Idol worshiping is something that separates you from God. But somebody connects you more to God is not idol worshiping. If a person, a tzaddik, a holy man, inspires you to be closer to God, then it's just the opposite. It's good.
So if they know all that, why are they saying, but we want the king that rules over us to lead us to war, not the judge? So why, if they know that, why? I'm confused.
Oh, then what do you mean why they know that? The Jews wanted to be like the Goyim. That's the problem.
Well, they're stupid.
When we wear the same jeans like everybody, and we go to the same things like everybody, that's the problem. The Jews didn't care for spirituality. They wanted to be like any other nation. Kechol hagoyim Beit Israel, like all the nations, the house of Israel.
But we're designed to be spiritual.
What do you think? In many parts, when let's say when Israel has a team that plays the sports teams. Is it needed for the Jewish state to have a sports team? And if not, the yeshivas will not work. The kotel will not be a good place. Having a sports team says, we want to be like everybody. Finally, a nation like any other nation. No more a nation living alone, being separated.
That's what Ben Gurion said, right?
Oh.
So sometimes you get what you wish for.
Yeah. Be careful what
No,
you wish for.
that's what they wanted. The whole movement was to become like everybody else. That's the problem. When Yitzhak Rabin came to the Rebbe in 1970, he was at that time, he came to wish the Rebbe blessings for his 70th birthday. The Rebbe started a conversation with him. The Rebbe told him, do you feel lonely in Washington? And the Rebbe got into a whole discussion that the Jewish people will be forever lonely. Not only because of anti-Semitism, but also because we are unique, we are different. Means to say, not because everybody hates us, therefore we are lonely. The moment they stop to hate us, we'll be a part of the nations, because they are different. This is the point the Rebbe wanted to give him over. In one of his speeches, when he did the Oslo Agreement, he said, no more being a lonely nation. Helped them a lot, right? Was a huge success. What I mean to say is this is exactly the problem here. The problem is not the king. The problem is a king like all the other nations. Okay, but number 13. Page 14.
But now you have the king whom you have chosen, whom you have requested, and God has now consented for him to be appointed as a king over you. If you will fear God and serve him and listen to his voice and do not rebel against God's commandments, both you and the king who reigns over you, then you will follow behind God your God when he leads you at war. But
Then it'll be good. If you listen to God, fine. You have a king, Hashem agreed, fine. The king is not necessarily a bad thing. If the king will do what Hashem wants and be a representative of God, that will be beautiful. But
if you will not listen to God's voice and you rebel against God's commandments, God's hand will be against you and against your kings who are like your fathers.
yeah, then will be bad news. Now he said to them,
Now if you are wondering why God agreed to appoint a king over you, being that it was an inappropriate request, stand and see this great thing which God will do before your eyes.
wow, he told them, stand and see the great thing that God will do. Where we see the word stand and see?
Sinai?
Close. Stand and see what Hashem will do for you.
In Deuteronomy, when Moses gives
Maybe
the
Sea of Reeds?
See of it. The same word, Isyatzvu Reu. What was the story there? They were afraid that the Egyptians are coming, and they started to complain to Moses. Moses said, stand up and see. Isyatzvu Reu is Yeshua's Hashem. You'll see here it tells them, Isyatzvu Reu, stand up and see. But there it was a miracle to save the Jews. Here it was not such good news. But here is exactly what happened in the story of Korach. Just like Moses said, Moses turned to God and says, make a miracle to prove that I'm right. Samuel did the same thing. What he did, number 17. Right? We are number 17.
Is it not?
Missed what's in the parentheses.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish it with you.
which will prove that God grants people's requests even if they are inappropriate.
That's, by the way, not so bad.
Well, spies is another example of that.
God gives you, the Talmud says like this, if you are stubborn to go the wrong way, God will help you. God stops you once, twice, 3 times. You want? Go! Then you have to be careful what you wish for, because God might fulfill it. Even an inappropriate request, God will help you. The spies is a perfect example. They wanted to stay in the desert, said, Zushe, sit. Go ahead, enjoy. They said, oh, no, we didn't mean. Oh, yeah, too late, Bocha. You not change your mind every 5 minutes.
Sounds like Brexit.
Yeah, exactly.
You're absolutely right. Now, I talked today to my brother-in-law in London, Ben Sisudek. He told me the mood here is so bad, it's unbelievable. People regretting it, and by law, they cannot have another referendum. I say, I can't believe it. You're absolutely right. I'm not so sure it's a good thing or a bad thing. We're not going to it, but the idea
get what you
that they
wish.
regret it,
Yeah.
Can't they send out another edict like Asheros?
like what?
Sure.
Like Achashverosh.
Yeah.
Good point. Go ahead. Where are we?
Number 17.
17.
Go ahead.
Is it not the wheat harvest today when rain is destructive? I will nevertheless call to God, and he will send thunder and rain. Then you will know and see that what you did to ask for yourselves a king was likewise very bad in the eyes of God, even though he granted your request.
You know, it means to have a rain. It means to destroy a year work. It one good rain, all goes in drought. And Samuel says, I'll make a miracle, middle of the summer it's going to rain. It was around, Ktsir Chitim is around Shavuos time, something like this. Samuel called to God,
And God sent thunder and rain on that day, and all the people feared God and Shmuel greatly.
that was a whole thing to experience. They should see a miracle. They should have the fear of God. Samuel says you wanted a king because you wanted somebody else. You didn't want God. You didn't want. All the people
All
said
the
to
people
Samuel,
said to Samuel, Pray for your servants to God, your God, and let us not die, for we have added evil to all our sins by asking for a king for ourselves.
no, they really, no. You are so lucky. You are
Pandora's
so sorry.
Check it out.
Pandora's
God,
box.
Huh?
Pandora's box.
He said, God, your God.
It's a translation from Hebrew. God, your God means Hashem Elokeichem. God, your God. Yeah, that's no more. What it means to say, they regret it. They saw this miracle from Hashem. They regret it, but there is a king already. That here, really, Samuel takes them on a roller coaster. Then what do you want from them now? Kind of. He told them, not because you got what you want means that you were right. And now basically Samuel tells them, you have a second chance. It was wrong to ask for a king. What I'm telling you, if you listen to the king and you listen to God, then we'll be good with the king. Okay, number 20.
Do not fear, Shmuel said to the people. You have already done all this evil, but do not turn away from following God. Serve God with all your heart, and your sin will be forgiven. Do not.
Despite all of this, if you'll do what Hashem says, God will forgive you.
Do not turn away from God, for then you would be following after empty things which cannot help or save you, since they are empty. For God will not abandon his people for the sake of his great name, since it would be a desecration of his name if he abandoned you, because everyone knows that God desired to make you a people for himself.
God will not abandon the people. That's a beautiful end to the Haftorah. Ki lo yitosh Hashem amo. God will never abandon the Jewish people. Then it's better to have a king or a prophet or a judge.
Well, here it says God won't abandon, will never abandon, because it's going to be a desecration of his name. Kind of like the other nations, like when you take us out in the desert and
Yeah, the
you
same
kill us.
logic that Moses was using by the spies and by
Well,
the
can I
golden
change what I
calf.
said?
What do you mean?
You said a kingdom or
Oh. No, why you can change. You're still allowed to change.
Depends on the king, right? Hezekiah did very well there for a
That's
while.
right, but we had bad kings, but we didn't have bad prophets.
No, because even you have bad prophets.
But we did have bad prophets.
About bad prophets is oxymoron. Because if he's bad,
You
he's
can't
not a
have a
prophet.
bad prophet.
God will not speak to him. You
Yeah,
understand?
it's not possible.
It's not possible, exactly. It could be a false prophet, but not a bad prophet.
I think it's interesting that if the prophet is in charge of community funds, that everyone's looking at what car the prophet's driving, where the money came from. But the king, it's very peaceful. The king can take what they want.
He's the boss.
And it's a very
It's
peaceful
expected.
situation. Expected.
It's an expectation.
I saw like yesterday. Some people say, you know, when there is a prophet, when the judges, the time of the judges, when it was bad, people turn to God, right? On one hand, it's amazing. They turn to God. When there is a king, you rely on the king. You don't pray to God every minute. But what's the other side? People pray to God or to idols. When you're looking for something to hold on to, you go to the Baal, to Ashtarot, to the Zeus, to the Shmuz. You're looking for anything to hold on to.
It's easier.
Then the problem with not having a stability is on one hand, you turn to God. On the other hand, you might drift in the wrong ways. Really, that's an old argument between the Hasidic movement. No, I mentioned it a few times, the movie Ushpizin, right? The only movie I saw. The movie Ushpizin is, anybody who saw it, is the guy is praying to God straight. God, help me. Beautiful, okay? It's a straight connection with God. Well, these people there is no authority. There's a relationship with God. He's doing whatever he wants, basically. Today is God, tomorrow is on to something where there is the commitment, the Seder, the Jewish law. It's not like, I'm running out to the field and I'm skipping to God. Praying to God is good, but it should be control. It shouldn't be something that's free for all, and then people can go in the wrong way. Then what's better, a king or a judge?
Prophet, a judge. You think so?
Prophet, judge. You know, remember the story in the book of Deuteronomy? God speaks about the land of Israel does not have water, right?
It's rain.
Rain. Why?
Because it doesn't have its own natural.
Why
river.
God
It's
did
like-
it this way?
Different than the Egyptians.
So we pray for rain. We dependent on God.
Dependent on God. It's to say God created the Jewish people in a way, and really it's true until today, that they never have stability. They're always like, oh. The rest of the world, in Ohio there is water forever. People feel good. So there is a Talmudic statement, anybody who lives outside of Israel is like idol worshiper. Very strict, very sharp statement. And when you think about it, the majority of the Jews throughout history lived outside of Israel, then it's, what's going on here? What really is saying, what means like an idol worshiper? God forbid you worshiping idols. In Israel, you constantly feel that you're dependent on God. Even today, with the security situation, every day is a miracle. And people feel it. In the diaspora, life is good. You can plan next year, next month, retirement, everything is good. Then you less feel physically the need for God. That you're dependent on God. What was the desert 4 years? Manna for the day. Nothing for tomorrow. Not leave anything in your package. Well, maybe something tomorrow to eat in the middle of the night if I'm hungry. No. And what if tomorrow there is no manna? Too bad. That would drove the Jews crazy in the desert. The way that they couldn't be relying on themselves, on something. No 401k, no gurnished. No plans, no securities. Today, you're living dependent on God. That even if they made a king, ultimately with the kings were plenty of sorrows too. And the Jews were always dependent on God. Didn't help them. Then on one hand, when you're only dependent on God, it's true you can go to the wrong ways. But I think it's still better than forgetting about it. Than feeling secure. Feeling secure says, oh, we have $1 billion in the bank, life is good, we can retire, everything is good. Sure. Yeah, God, sure, we pray, yeah, but we are not desperate. Then ultimately it's better even that the Torah says to make a king, but that's the question. A king who is representative of God is beautiful. But a king who will be his own, then we don't need such kings.
King David.
King David was a representative of God. It was King David and Solomon and a good Shabbos, and that was the end of it.
Hezekiah.
And Hezekiah and
Hezekiah was for 5 minutes, yeah, it was good too.
Josiah, yeah.
How many righteous kings were there?
About
You
4.
know, 3, 4. How many kings were wrong?
Yeah. Don't forget the northern tribes too.
48, something.
There are a lot,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, something like this. 48 prophets and a similar number of kings. A lot of kings. Only it was the brothers. That's what it's all about.
So is that part of the struggle in Israel today between the secular Jews and the, let's say, the religious Jews? Because the secular Jews want to feel independent and therefore don't have that same need as the very religious Jews who are every day praying for the manna to show up again? Every day, because every day is a
Even if you
struggle?
feel independent in Israel, you're a miracle. You
Oh,
matter
there's
how
plenty of-
religious or secular you are, to go in Tel Aviv and not to be blown up is a miracle.
Well, that's true, but
Then what I mean to say, the reality is like this. It's not about what you believe in, what you think. Ben Gurion said that in Israel, being realistic means believing in miracles.
That was nice.